श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे। उन्मत्तनटनताण्डवं मत्ते भवदनभासुरं चित्ताब्जबोधभास्करम् आयतयोगराजितं विद्वेषनित्यपूजितम् उत्तानपाणिमुद्रितं श्रीकृत्तिवाससुतं कैलासदृशदिनर्तनं भक्तान्तरङ्गवर्तनं पापौघपाशकर्तनं श्रीपार्वतीसुतं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे। लम्बोदराङ्गताण्डवं मुद्राकराब्जपण्डितं सर्वाङ्गनागमण्डनं वन्दे विनायकं पतिं। धिं धिम्मितकिटमर्दलं भं भं निनादशङ्खकम् आनन्दनृत्यतत्परं ध्यायामि प्रमथनायकम्। आमोदकरमोदकं वेदान्तमतिमादकं दुष्कर्मफलसाधकं विघ्नेश्वरं गुरुं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे। सृष्टिस्थितिलयकारणं मोक्षाख्यदैत्यमारणं संसारजलधितारणं स्तौमि प्रभो नरवारणं। पञ्चास्यमादिदैवतं देवऋषिभिः समर्चितम् आलोकगलितसञ्चितं विघ्नाधिनाथमाश्रये। श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे। लोकैकपरमवैभवं लोकेश्वरादिसम्भवम् आलोकपरिहृतोद्भवम् आलोकये परं भवम्। श्रीकृष्णकविनिवेदितैः श्लोकाख्यमोदकैरिमैः आनन्दगणपतिं पतिम् आराधयन्तु साधकाः। श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे, 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 श्रीदत्तगणपतिं भजे।
ॐ परब्रह्मसमारम्भां श्रीदत्तात्रेयमध्यमाम् श्रीदत्तस्वामिपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। सर्वविश्वन्यस्तपादपद्मायते वामहस्तालोलवेदशास्त्रायते ज्ञानसूर्यायते दत्तरूपायते श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् श्रीवेणुगोपालकृष्णाय वन्दनम् गुरुदत्त श्रीदत्त प्रभुदत्त पाहि माम् विधिदत्त हरिदत्त हरदत्त रक्ष माम् पाहि मां दत्त रक्ष मां दत्त
Pada Namaskaram Swamiji.
Namaste.
With salutations at the lotus feet of Swamiji, let us begin the satsang. We will go through question and answers today. I offer this dedication at the lotus feet of Swamiji. From you alone is all knowledge sublime, and everything that's great and fine. All the ignorance and error are but mine, for I am just a soul, and you the goal divine. Trusting your compassion benign, my errant service I yet consign to those holy lotus feet of thine, Shri Datta Swami, my Sadguru trine. So last time we were going through the question and answers related to the Satyanarayana Swami Puja. And we were within that, we were in this question. This question has several parts. Swami has given the answer to this particular question in several parts. We had covered the first two parts, that is A and B, and now we will go through C. So this question is, what is the inner meaning of the stories that are read after the worship, after the ritual portion of that puja? There is the recitation of certain stories are told. So what is the inner meaning? Naturally, these stories that are being told are symbolic, and we are supposed to get some lessons out of them. So the first two stories, the first 2 points were already explained by Swamiji, A and B, and now C. So Swami says, in the same second chapter, a Shudra cutting sticks and selling them for his livelihood is also introduced. He's a woodcutter who cuts wood and sells it. And he was a Shudra by caste. And he was never told to have suffered with poverty because Shudras never suppressed any other caste. They were the ones who were suppressed by other castes. The seller of these sticks, this Shudra, entered the house of the above said Brahmana to drink water since he was thirsty. It is said in that story, Krishnaya Piditatmacha. He was thirsty. And so to drink water, he entered that Brahmana's house. Now, one may say that Shudras were not given poverty, but here it appears that this Shudra was suffering. He was suffering due to thirst. But that suffering due to thirst has nothing to do with, Swami is going to explain, this thirst shall not be interpreted as poverty because hunger alone is the indicator of poverty. Thirst has nothing to do with poverty. Even a king can become thirsty. So in the previous point, Swami had explained that a Brahmana, because he belonged to the tradition of blind recitation, he suffered from poverty. What is the logic behind this? It is said that a Brahmana who does not recite the mantras or who leaves the recitation of mantras, leaves out a mantra, such a person will suffer from poverty. Now it turns out that most Brahmanas, they are very particular about reciting the mantras in Sanskrit. Yet they are suffering from poverty. So how can this be justified? Swami explained that the Brahmana is speaking, he is reciting the mantras in Sanskrit, but he is not conveying the meaning of the mantra to the public. The role of a Brahmana priest is to preach the spiritual knowledge given by God to the public. Firstly, the Brahmana should understand the spiritual knowledge given by God. If he doesn't understand, the whole battle is lost even before starting. Firstly, he should understand it. Having understood it, he should not keep it to himself. He should preach it to the public. Now, the Brahmana is only reciting the Sanskrit verses before the public, and that too, in many cases, it is not recited very well either. Nevertheless, even if it is recited in excellent Sanskrit, the purpose is not fulfilled because the public does not know Sanskrit. In ancient times, the public knew Sanskrit. It was their mother tongue. Whatever is spoken in Sanskrit, they were able to understand it. But for the past few thousand years, Sanskrit has not been the mother tongue of people. Even few thousand years ago also, Sanskrit was not the language of the masses. Prakrit, Pali, some other languages were there, and then these languages have changed into the modern day languages of India. So if you recite anything in Sanskrit, if you speak anything in Sanskrit, the public is not able to understand. So has the priest delivered the knowledge of the Veda to the public? No, he has not. And that is why Brahmanas are suffering from poverty. The mantra of the Veda, mantras are hymns from the Veda. The mantras are to be delivered to the public. They are delivering the mantra by reciting it, but nobody is understanding that, understanding what they are reciting. So in effect, they are not delivering the mantra to the public. And that is why God is punishing them through poverty. So that is the explanation why Brahmanas are suffering from poverty. Here Swami is giving the example of a Shudra who is not suffering from poverty. It is not stated in that story anywhere that this woodcutter who is selling those sticks as firewood, it is not stated anywhere that he is a poor person, he is suffering from poverty and all that. And the reason he is not suffering is he has not harmed anyone. He is not suppressing the other castes, the Shudra castes. They did not suppress others. It was others who suppressed them. The so-called higher castes like Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Brahmanas, they suppressed the Shudras. Shudras never suppressed anyone. And as a result, God has no reason to punish them with poverty. So this person was not poor. The counter argument would be that, oh no, he was also suffering because it is said that he was suffering due to thirst. Krishnaya Piditatma. No, he was not. He was not poor. Anyone can have thirst. Even a king can be thirsty. So it doesn't mean that the king is poor. Thirst is something that anyone can have. However, if a person is going hungry, then that is usually because the person is poor. Only poor people go hungry. Now, the fourth point that Swamiji is mentioning, this is point D. In the third chapter, a king was introduced doing this worship. There was a king who was performing this Satyanarayana Swami Vratam. And he was not punished by God because he never did any sin at any time. This means that there are some good souls who will not become egoistic due to power and wealth. Now, this king had power, he had wealth. Most people who have power and wealth are very likely to abuse that power, exploit that power, and suppress other people, harass other people. But not all. There are some people, like this king, he did not harm anyone. He did not misuse the power granted to him by God. And as a result, he was not punished. The next point, the fifth one. In the third and fourth chapters, a Vaishya doing business is introduced. He was very greedy even towards God. So this greedy Vaishya, this is a story of this greedy Vaishya, and he was so greedy. Usually, if you are greedy and you don't give your money to other people, that is okay. But in front of God, you should not be greedy. You should not hold on to your money like a miser and not give it to God. But this fellow, even towards God, he was miserly. Such a greedy fellow was subjected to several difficulties again and again till he got reformed. Every time his wife seriously advises him that he should not be greedy towards God. This shows that females generally have lesser greediness and more submissiveness due to the lack of the masculine ego. Greedy people spend lakhs of rupees on purchasing new clothes for their weddings, but they purchase a cheap red kashi towel of 1 rupee to present to the priest. So when in this Satyanarayana Vratam, when the Brahmana priest comes to conduct that ritual, some dakshina is to be given to them, some a piece of cloth is generally given. So that the donation that they do is so utterly um, miserly. It is clearly obvious that they don't want to give anything at all. It is just because the tradition says that you have to donate something that they are donating. And the same people, when it comes to their own luxuries, their own enjoyments, their own family members, they are very lavish, and they do not spare any luxurious kind of spending. But when it comes to giving to the priest or giving to God, then their extreme sense of economy suddenly crops up. So they purchase expensive basmati rice to be cooked as food for their relatives and friends in the function, whereas they purchase very cheap ration rice to give to the priests. So that shows their attitude. So in the next point is in the fourth chapter, the daughter of the greedy Vaishya was also punished by God, since she did the worship of Sri Satyanarayana Swami, but forgot to take the remains of the food offered to God, that is the prasadam. She forgot to take the prasadam due to her excessive fascination for her husband, who was coming home after a long time. When she heard the news that her father, who had gone for his business, was returning after a long time, she was so excited, she wanted to meet him right away. So she did not wait for the prasadam, which was to be offered, which was to be served after the offering to God. The advice of God is that one should not be inspired by the selfish love of worldly bonds, especially before the selfless true love of God. So what happened in her case is that she prioritized, she was more fascinated by her worldly bond, her bond with her husband, compared to her bond with God. Maybe she had some devotion, but in her mind, her husband was more important. She did not have the proper realization that be it the husband, be it the parents, be it the children, these are all worldly bonds. Worldly bonds are temporary, they are unreal. And every worldly person loves others only due to the love for the self and not the love for those people. Atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. The husband loves her not for her sake. He loves her for his own sake. And so it applies to all other relations also. So should we give more importance to our worldly relations, which are temporary, being temporary, they are unreal, and which are not even genuine? They are kind of illusory in the sense that they are trying to cheat us. They claim that they love us, but they actually love themselves. It is only because through us, they get some satisfaction, they get some kind of fulfillment through us. That is why they seem to love us. So in all these senses, we find that the love of uh, human love, the love that you have for your worldly bonds, is of an inferior quality compared to the love that God has for us. God's love for us is the highest, and hence it is but natural that we should love Him the most as compared to our worldly bonds. But she was kind of caught in this illusion and she did not prioritize God, and that is why she was punished. In the 5th chapter, cowherds were again introduced doing this worship with full purity and innocence. They were not punished by God since they never did any sin. In this chapter, another king was introduced who did a sin of not saluting to God and also not accepting the prasadam from the cowherds. The king was horribly punished by God for his ego. So here we learn the lesson that one should not have ego, especially when you have wealth and power like a king. You are more susceptible to fall due to ego. And that is what happened to the king. These cowherds were sincere and pure. Part of that purity is that they were poor. Generally, when we are poor, we have less reason to get egotistic. We are more dependent on God because we cannot depend on our wealth, we cannot depend on our power or influence or connections. We are forced to depend on God. And when we depend on God, we are never disappointed. God fulfills our needs, and God also ensures our spiritual upliftment. As a result, our bond with God goes on increasing. When we are in adversity, when we have poverty, when we have some kind of difficulty, or problem that is conducive to the growth of devotion. I agree there are exceptions. There are some people who, despite being powerful, despite being rich, they can maintain their devotion. But that is very rare. And that also happens only because of the grace of God. The moment that person thinks that I can maintain my devotion under any circumstances, that moment he will fall. But those few souls who have the grace of God, who are not egotistic, they can maintain their devotion. We have the example of great people who became kings, like Prahlada, the great devotee. He later on he became king, and he lived an excellent life. He was always devoted to God. Even King Janaka, despite being a king, he did not fall due to ego. But these are very rare exceptions. Forget about becoming a king. Even if we get a small amount of wealth, a small amount of power, that is more than enough to corrupt us. So the cowherds, they had that advantage of not having power, not having um, any reason to be egotistic. The king, on the other hand, had all the reason to be egotistic, and he behaved in an egotistic manner by not saluting to God, not accepting prasadam, and as a result, he was punished. The next point, the males of higher castes were punished for their sins by God due to their ego of higher castes. The caste of Shudras was never punished by God due to their lack of caste ego in them. And since they were not doing any sin due to their submissiveness, which resulted from their suppression by the higher castes. In God's creation, things are arranged so beautifully that even some disadvantage, which appears to be a disadvantage, turns out to be your advantage. If you have turned to God, God will make sure that every disadvantage that you have actually becomes your advantage. But if you are turned away from God, then even any advantage that you have will become your disadvantage. So the Shudras, the cowherds, they are lower castes, and society looks down upon them. Society tries to suppress them. So they are at a disadvantage. They don't have money also. The cowherds, probably they were not very rich. The previously mentioned Shudra, he was not rich, but he did not have poverty. He was making a decent amount of money, sufficient for his family. So the people who are not rich, people who do not have a high caste, they are actually better off because they don't get ego due to either the possession of their wealth, or in this case, what Swamiji is mentioning, the ego of caste. That is also very important. If you are born in a high caste, if you're born to parents who belong to a so-called high caste, in God's eyes, there is nothing high or low. There is no high caste and low caste, because the origin of the caste is told in the Purusha Suktam in the Veda, and it is said that each of the castes have emerged from God. Even the so-called Shudras, which are said to be low caste, it is said that they have emerged from the feet of God. Now, is there anything more sacred than the feet of God? If God's feet are the most sacred, how can the Shudra who has emerged from the feet of God, how can he be unsacred, unholy? So it is absurd to think that any caste is inferior or superior. They are all equally precious because they have equally emerged from God. They said, Brahmanosya mukhamasi bahurajanyakruta uru tadasya yadvaishyah padhyagum shudro ajayata. The Brahmana emerged from the mouth of God, or it is said sits on the mouth of God. The kings and the administrators, that is the Kshatriyas, they sit at the arms of God, and the Vaishya, the businessmen, traders, they sit on the thighs of God, and the Shudra has emerged from the feet of God. Now, these are all body parts of the same God. Every body part is equally precious. The roles of every body part are different, and as a result, the function of every caste in society is also different. But each of them carries out an essential function in society, an equally important, equally sacred function in society. And as a result, for the Brahmana or the Kshatriya or the Vaishya to think that we are the high caste and the Shudras are the lower caste, this is not right. If any person has that kind of ego, God will certainly punish them. And the Shudras, because they are suppressed by God, they are at a disadvantage. If they turn to God, God will turn that disadvantage into an advantage for them. But what is important is, see, whether you are a Brahmana or a Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Shudra, that doesn't matter. What matters is you should be turned to God. If you are not turned to God, then that facility is not there. As in, let us say there is a Shudra, he is suppressed by others in society, and he starts a rebellion. I will kill all the people who are suppressing me. I will fight against them. I will burn down their houses. God is not going to support such unruly and unethical behavior. If that Shudra turns towards God, God will support him. If there is a Brahmana, instead of having the ego of high caste, if he is turned towards God, God will not punish him. God will bless him. So whatever is your caste, whatever is the functional role of that caste in society, that all that doesn't matter because each of them are equally precious. What is important is that wherever you were born, whatever be your caste, whatever be your profession today, you should be turned to God. So the males of the high castes were punished for their sins by God. God did not punish them because they belong to high castes. God punished them because they committed sins due to their ego of high caste. They were thinking that I belong to a high caste, I'm such a great person, and by doing that, uh, or rather, due to that attitude, they committed sins against others. That is why God punished. So a person who commits sins is clearly not turned towards God. A person who turns towards God never violates justice. He never commits sins. So the Shudras who are mentioned in the stories, they were never punished because they did not have any caste ego in them. They were the ones, in fact, who were suppressed by the other castes. Since they did not have any caste ego, they were humble, they were submissive, and God likes that submissive nature. When a devotee is submissive towards him, God likes such a nature. Person who is egotistical, God does not appreciate at all. So the Shudras were not punished. These Shudras and females of all castes were categorized in one group due to the common suppression by males of higher castes, by denying them the right to study the Vedas. Now, in the Middle Ages, what happened is the culture degraded, and the Brahmanas, who had some power and influence in society, they wanted to maintain or retain that power, or in fact, they wanted to grab more power for themselves. So what they did is that power can be maintained when they have control over Vedic learning, Vedic knowledge. So what they did is they banned the Shudras and their own women from learning the Veda. They restricted Vedic learning only to themselves. They could not restrict the Kshatriya males and the Vaishya males from studying the Veda because these are powerful people. Vaishyas have a lot of money. Kshatriyas have money as well as power. So you cannot restrict them from studying the Veda. The Kshatriyas will chop off their heads if they restrict the male Kshatriyas from doing so. So they could not restrict the male Kshatriyas and Vaishyas from learning the Veda. So, but they could restrict all the females of all castes, including their own wives and daughters. So they restricted women from studying the Veda and they restricted the Shudras from studying the Veda so that Vedic learning or Vedic knowledge remains concentrated in their own hands. And using that knowledge, they can control the rest of society. The Shudras are the majority in society. They are the masses. And so they can control the masses with this. So the problem is that in doing so, they actually violated the rights of everybody to know the knowledge of God. The knowledge of God is not meant for only one person or certain privileged people. When God preaches to society, he expects that knowledge to reach everybody in society so that everybody improves their behavior, everybody follows justice, and everyone has the opportunity to develop devotion. He is not forcing you to develop devotion, but everyone should have the opportunity to develop devotion. The opportunity should not be concentrated only in the hands of Brahmanas or Kshatriyas or someone. So, reading forward, the Veda only means knowledge and not the blind recitation of words without knowing their meaning. The meaning of the Veda is written in the form of normal Sanskrit verses in the secondary scriptures called the Puranams. Females of all castes and Shudras are very fortunate because they learn the meaning of the Vedas through the study of the Puranams without wasting time on the blind recitation of the Veda. So this is how God turned their disadvantage into an advantage. The Brahmanas restricted Vedic learning, and the way they defined Vedic learning is memorizing the Veda and reciting it according to the Vedic accents, according to the swaras. That is what they defined Vedic learning as. And such Vedic learning involving memorization and blind recitation, they kept with themselves. And they prevented others from getting that kind of Vedic learning. But the reality is that such memorization and blind recitation is not Vedic learning at all. Vedic knowledge is the meaning. For any knowledge, forget about Vedic knowledge. Let it be the knowledge of mathematics. Let it be the knowledge of physics, chemistry, anything. The knowledge means the concepts which are to be understood. Knowledge does not mean just the words. The words are expected to convey the meaning. If the words are successful in conveying the meaning, knowledge transfer has happened. If the words are recited but the meaning is not conveyed, knowledge transfer has not happened. So when they memorize the Vedic verses, they have not memorized the Veda. They have memorized the words. They have not memorized the meaning. When they transmit that Vedic knowledge through recitation to their disciples, they have not transmitted the Veda. They have transmitted the words. The meaning is lost. So what happened to these egotistic, controlling, higher caste men is that they kept with them the words, but the meaning slipped out of their hands. Where did the meaning go? The meaning went in the hands of the females and the Shudras, whom they tried to exploit. What they said to the females and the Shudras is, see, this Veda is prohibited. You are not allowed to listen to the Veda. You cannot recite the Veda. We alone can recite the Veda. Okay, then what can you do? You can read the Puranas. Now, what are the Puranas? Puranas are the same Vedic knowledge related or expressed in the form of stories. Stories of incarnations of God and stories of their devotees. It is the same Vedic knowledge delivered in fact, a more effective form. The stories are a much more effective form of learning knowledge. So the Brahmanas had permitted the ladies as well as the Shudras to learn the Puranams. What they did not realize is the Shudras and the ladies, they understood through the stories, they understood the meaning of the Veda very clearly. On the other hand, these higher caste men, due to their ego, what remained with them is only the words of the Veda, but the meaning of the Veda was lost. They could not even grasp the meaning that is given in the Puranas, because the Puranas were read by the Brahmanas also, by the way, but they could not grasp it because they had ego. Ego is a great barrier to learning knowledge. That is why always in our tradition, the guru sits at a higher level and the shishyas, the disciples, sit at a lower level. If the shishyas sit at the same level or a higher level than the guru, that is indicative of the shishya or the disciple having ego. If you have ego, knowledge will not flow to you. Just as water flows from a higher level to the lower level, knowledge also flows from a higher level to a lower level. If you want to get good knowledge, your ego should come down to the lowest possible level. So these Shudras and females whose ego, due to their suppression, had become close to zero, They understood the heart of the teaching. The heart of the Veda, they understood through the Puranas. And the Brahmanas and the higher caste, other higher caste, Kshatriya and Vaishya males, who were reciting the Veda and learning the Vedic mantras, who were permitted to learn the Vedic mantras, because they had so much ego, neither could they understand the meaning of the Veda from the Vedic mantras, nor could they understand the heart of the Vedic knowledge from the Puranas. So their advantage was turned into a disadvantage due to their ego. And for the women and Shudras, their disadvantage was turned into their biggest advantage due to their lack of ego. All the females and Shudras who were turned to God, they got benefited. Of course, those women and Shudras who were against God, naturally they did not get any benefit. Irrespective of your caste, race, and anything, if you are turned against God, against justice, definitely punishment is due for you. But if you are turned towards God, God will uplift you always. God will never leave any soul who is turned towards him. So the females of all castes as well as the Shudras are very fortunate because they learn the meaning of the Vedas through the study of the Puranams without wasting time on the blind recitation of the Veda. Memorizing the Veda is not a small task. And learning to recite it precisely with the swaras, that is not at all a small task. It takes many, many, many years of continuous study to learn that. Having learned that, what is the benefit for you? Absolutely zero. If you have not understood the meaning, the sound of the Veda has absolutely no effect. On the other hand, if you spend even 1/10 of that time in understanding the concepts, that has infinite value. So these higher castes, they spent so much time in memorizing the Veda and reciting it without paying attention to the concept. That was their mistake. And that is why they lost the true meaning of the Veda. Now, of course, we are grateful to all the Brahmanas of the past who, due to that recitation, they preserved the Veda and brought it to the present generation. For that, we are truly grateful because there was no other way of preserving the Veda. Written text can easily be destroyed, but when it is transmitted through a living tradition of uh, very sincere Brahmanas who pass it down from generation to generation, that is almost impossible to destroy, and it has survived. The Veda has survived despite so many invasions, so many attempts to destroy it. It is only because of this tradition of recitation. So in the past, it had a benefit. No doubt it had a benefit, but now that is not necessary. Now Vedic recitation is not relevant. What is infinitely more relevant is the meaning of the Veda. That was always relevant. So we should not neglect the meaning. Then the next point. In the 4th chapter, the female soul called Kalavati was punished by God for her blind fascination to a worldly bond. That same lady who went to meet her husband. So this means that God is advising women not to have so much blind fascination towards worldly bonds and neglect God. So in the previous point, Swami said that women and Shudras were protected and favored by God because of their low ego. But if a woman does something wrong, if she prioritizes her husband over God, then naturally that is a mistake, and the mistake will naturally yield punishment. The next question is related to the concept of Guru Dakshina. What is Guru Dakshina and how much Guru Dakshina should we pay to the priest? So Swami explains, Guru Dakshina is to be paid to the priest for conducting the worship in which he strains himself by reciting Vedic hymns. Now, in the traditional puja, when you call the Brahmin priest, he recites the Veda, some Vedic hymns. before the public. Ideally, he is expected to recite the Veda and then explain the meaning. But many of these priests do not, even if you demand that you please explain the meaning of the hymns, they do not explain, partly because they don't know it, and partly because they want to quickly finish the puja and go to the next puja so they can charge more fees. So whatever be the reason, the meaning of the Veda must be conveyed to the public, but they are not doing it. But Swami says that in any case, you should give Guru Dakshina. Guru Dakshina is the respectful offering of fees to the priest who has come to your house to conduct this puja. So Swami says that Guru Dakshina is to be paid to the priest for conducting the worship in which he strains himself by reciting the Vedic hymns. He's doing some work. He has spent so many years learning the Veda and he is reciting it for you. So you should pay something. Swami says Guru Dakshina should be paid even though the priest does not explain the meaning, because you invited him as the priest after knowing his defect very well. When you invited the priest, you came to know about that priest through maybe some friend or someone else some known connection, because perhaps that priest had done the puja in someone else's house. So you came to know, and you obviously knew that he only recites the Veda and he does not explain the meaning. In spite of that, you invited him, didn't you? So then you should at least pay him for his services. No one forced you to invite this person. You could have gone to some other priest who properly explains the meaning, but you did not go to that priest. You went to this fellow. So if you have gone to this fellow, if you've invited him, you should pay, because he has come all the way. He has spent his time. He is reciting for you. Then you should pay. The host and the performer of the worship shall pay Guru Dakshina to the priest based on two criteria of capability, that is Yatha Shakti, and his impression about the priest, Yatha Bhakti. So are you impressed with the priest or not? To what extent was the priest, to what extent are you capable of paying the priest? How rich are you? And how impressed with him are you? Are you highly impressed with him? Or are you not impressed with him? Or mildly impressed with him? So based on these two criteria, how much money can you pay and how much money are you willing to pay because you are impressed with him? So Yatha Shakti and Yatha Bhakti, these are the two criteria. Whichever is of a lower value. And Swami will explain those criteria, what those four scenarios of when in some cases your capability of paying is less, but you are greatly impressed with the priest, and four different possibilities that Swami will explain. So Swami says, four possibilities result. One, low capability and high impression. That is, you are poor, you are not capable of paying a high amount, but you are highly impressed with the priest. So example is, your capability is only to pay rupees 10 and your impression about the priest is worth rupees 100. Then pay the lower amount, which is rupees 10 only. The lower of the two can be paid. You want to pay him 100, but you are capable of paying only 10. Then you pay 10. No need to strain yourself and pay 100. The second case is high capability and low impression. You are capable of paying 100 rupees, but your impression about the priest is only worth 10 rupees. You are not impressed with that fellow. Then pay the lower rupees 10 only. Third case, high capability and high impression. Your capability is rupees 100 and your impression about the priest is also worth rupees 100. Then pay the tallied amount, that is rupees 100. Fourth case is low capability and low impression. Your capability is rupees 10 and your impression about the priest is also rupees 10. Then pay the tallied rupees 10 only. So you are a poor person, you can pay only 10 and the priest is also not very great. and you are not impressed with him, then okay, you just pay 10 rupees. Swami goes further and he says, the above values of amounts are only mentioned as examples, and you should take them in the relative sense and not in the absolute sense. This means that you should not stick to just rupees 10 and rupees 100 even today. The 10 and 100, they are just representative numbers. It doesn't mean that when the priest comes to you, you pay only rupees 10 or only rupees 100. No, that is not the point. You should not say that since Swami, myself, Swami is speaking, advised you like this, you will only give those amounts since you are good followers of Swamiji, following him word by word. These figures are 5,000-year-old figures since the beginning of the Kali age, since all prices are soaring high due to inflation. So paying rupees 10 or rupees 100 to a priest is utterly insufficient in present times because due to inflation, prices have risen so much. Maybe in some, Swami says 5,000 years ago, maybe that was a sufficient Guru Dakshina. Giving 10 rupees or giving 100 rupees might have been justified 5,000 years ago, but not today. Today, prices are soaring. At times, Swami hears some devotees commenting that the priests are demanding money in thousands. Swami likes to ask such devotees whether their pay scales were revised from time to time or not. The people who are saying that, no, nowadays I called one priest to my house to conduct a certain ritual and he's asking for 5,000 rupees. This fellow should understand his salary has undergone so many pay scale revisions. There was the fifth pay commission, sixth pay commission, seventh pay commission, and now eighth pay commission is coming. And that is for people in government service. What about industrialists and what about industry salaries? Now people are earning enormous amounts of money. So when their salaries have increased, don't you think the priest also requires more money? Swami says, you should also realize that the value of the rupee has fallen down terribly. Even after confining to only basic necessities, the cost of living has become very high. So the priest, even though the priest tries his best to lead a very simple life, confining himself to only basic necessities and not engaging in any luxurious activities, still the cost of living has become very high. For example, the priest, possibly he does not own a house. If he has to live on rent in any of the cities, how high the rent is, how can he afford that rent? He also needs a roof to stay. His children also have to go to school. What are the school fees nowadays? If you go to the grocery store, all the groceries are expensive. So Swami says, this does not mean that I am supporting the priests just because I belong to their caste by birth. I always support the caste system based on qualities and deeds only, and not by birth. So who is a Brahmana? A Brahmana is one who has the qualities of a Brahmana and who uh, does the follows the profession or the function of a Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who is devoted to God, who is learned in spiritual knowledge, who is not selfish. He is more concerned about serving God than serving himself. Such a person is a Brahmana. And what is his function in society? To propagate the divine knowledge and devotion of God to society. That is his function in society. That's a social function. So a Brahmana is characterized by the qualities and deeds, not by birth. Just because some fellow was born in a Brahmana family, he doesn't become a Brahmana automatically. If he follows that profession because he has those exact qualities also, then he is a Brahmana. Then we have no objection to call him a Brahmana. So Swami is saying that the Brahmana is to be decided by the qualities and deeds. So also the Kshatriya, so also the Vaishya, so also the Shudra. Each is to be decided to be belonging to that caste based on qualities and deeds only. So Swami is not supporting any classification of caste which is done by birth. Swami says further, I am recommending rich people in society to support the poor priests by giving them at least enough to secure their livelihood by treating them to be the poorest. At least out of some kindness, the rich people should give them sufficient to sustain their families. It is a basic emergency justice to not allow anybody to die of hunger. Even though the ignorant poor priest was reciting Vedic hymns without knowing and explaining their meanings, that poor fellow recited the Vedic hymns for hours together, and hence you can pay him for that physical labor at least. You may argue that the physical labor is a waste for you since the priest did not explain the meanings. In that case, why did you invite him to such a wasteful physical labor? Why did you invite him to do such physical wasteful labor? Once you have invited, you must pay for the physical labor at least. In fact, I am very angry with the priests for following this dirty old tradition of the blind recitation of the Veda without explaining the meaning in the mother tongue of the public while conducting the rituals. They are supposed to explain the meaning to the public in their mother tongue. In fact, these priests also need not be blamed because they are not the initiators of this bad tradition of blind recitation of the Veda. Their fault is that they are following the old blind traditions which are to be discarded by analysis. Jnatva kurvita karmani is told in the Gita. There are plenty of the best old traditions practiced by our ancient sages to be followed by everybody. So Swami says that no tradition should be followed simply because it is old or simply because it is new. All that is old is not necessarily gold. And all that is new is also not necessarily great. Whatever the tradition, be it an old tradition, be it a new tradition, we should analyze it properly. Whichever is good is to be followed. Whichever is bad is to be discarded. And especially if we look at the ancient traditions, which were started by the sages, ancient traditions have been started by sages. So among them, there are excellent traditions, very good traditions started by them, which improve our learning of spiritual knowledge, our realization about God, our devotion to God. So such traditions are to be preserved. They should be followed very seriously. In the name of false modernism, they should not be discarded. On the other hand, some bad traditions which have crept up, which have crept into our traditions since the past few thousand years, through analysis, you can find out that these are not healthy traditions. Let us get rid of them. Let us go back to the good traditions and maintain them. Also, at the same time, if something new is also beneficial, let us take that. What is the harm? For example, Swami started using all the modern electronic technology for the propagation of spiritual knowledge, be it email or be it websites or be it um, uh, YouTube channels and things like that. So that is a modern technology. If it is useful for propagating spiritual knowledge, what is the harm? Let us use it. In fact, these technologies were given to humanity for this beneficial purpose, not for the wasteful purpose that people use them. So with that, we come to the end of this series of questions. I offer my salutations at the lotus feet of Swamiji. Pada Namaskaram, Swamiji.
Namaste, namaste. Oh, yeah. Excellent.
Excellent one, Swami.
Namaskaram, Swami.
Namaste.
First, I will share the screen. Just coming to that slide. Okay. These are all the set of question answers on March 19, 2026. We have covered the first 4 questions. In the fifth question also, partly it was read, and now we'll continue. The main question is, what is the inner meaning of stories read after the worship? The Satyanarayana Vratam, after the stories read after the worship. So the next point C is, in the same second chapter, a Sudra cutting sticks and selling them for his livelihood is also introduced, and he was never told to have suffered with poverty, because Sudras never suppressed any other caste. They were the ones who were suppressed by other castes. The seller of sticks entered the house of the above said Brahmana to drink water, since he was thirsty. Krishnaya Piditatmacha. This thirst shall not be interpreted as poverty, because hunger alone is the indicator of poverty. Excellent point here. The thirst has nothing to do with poverty. Even a king can become thirsty. In the third chapter, a king was introduced doing this worship. He was not punished by God, since he never did any sin at any time. This means that there are some good souls who will not become egoistic due to power and wealth. Next point. In the third and fourth chapters, a Vaishya doing business is introduced. He was very greedy, even towards God. Such a greedy fellow was subjected to several difficulties again and again till he was reformed. Every time his wife seriously advises him that he should not be greedy towards God. This shows that females generally have lesser greediness and more submissiveness due to the lack of the masculine ego. Greedy people spend lakhs of rupees on purchasing new clothes for their weddings, but they purchase a cheap red Kashi towel for 1 rupee to present to the priest. They purchase expensive basmati rice to be cooked as food for their relatives and friends in the function, whereas they purchase very cheap ration rice to give to the priests. In the fourth chapter, the daughter of the greedy Vaishya was also punished by God, since she did the worship of Sri Satyanarayana Swami but forgot to take the remains of the food offered to God, that is, prasadam, due to her excessive fascination for her husband who was coming home after a long time. The advice of God is that one should not be inspired by the selfish love of worldly bonds, especially before the selfless true love of God. Next point. In the fifth chapter, cowherds were again introduced doing this worship with full purity and innocence. They were not punished by God, since they never did any sin. In this chapter, another king was introduced who did a sin of not saluting to God and also not accepting the prasadam from cowherds. The king was horribly punished by God for his ego. Next point. The males of higher castes were punished for their sins by God due to their ego of higher castes. The caste of Sudras was never punished by God due to the lack of caste ego in them and not doing any sin due to their submissiveness, which resulted from their suppression by higher castes. These Sudras and females of all castes were categorized in one group due to the common suppression by males of higher castes by denying them the right to study the Vedas. Veda only means knowledge and not the blind recitation of some words without knowing their meaning. The meaning of the Veda is written in the form of normal Sanskrit verses in the secondary scriptures, that is Puranams. Females of all castes and Sudras are very fortunate because they learn the meaning of the Vedas through the study of the Puranams without wasting time on the blind recitation of the Veda. Next point. In the fourth chapter, the female soul called Kalavati was punished by God for her blind fascination to her worldly bond. This means that God is advising women not to have so much blind fascination towards worldly bonds and neglect God. Guru Dakshina is to be paid to the sorry. Next question is, how much Guru Dakshina should we pay to the priest? This is the next question in that series of questions. Swami replied, Guru Dakshina is to be paid to the priest for conducting the worship in which he strains himself by reciting Vedic hymns. Guru Dakshina should be paid even though the priest does not explain the meaning, because you invited him as the priest after knowing his defect very well. It's an excellent point here, brought out by Swami. The host and the performer of the worship shall pay Guru Dakshina to the priest based on two criteria of capability, that is, Yadhashakti, and his impression about the priest, that is, Yadha Bhakti, whichever is of lower value. Now, based on this, four possibilities result. First possibility is low capability and high impression. Your capability is only to pay rupees 10, and your impression about the priest is worth rupees 100. Then pay the lower amount, which is rupees 10 only. Second possibility, high capability and low impression. Your capability is rupees 100, and your impression about the priest is only worth rupees 10. Then pay the lower rupees 10 only. High capability and high impression. Your capability is rupees 100, and your impression about the priest is also worth rupees 100. Then pay the tallied rupees 100. The next fourth, low capability and low impression. Your capability is rupees 10, and your impression about the priest is also rupees 10. Then pay the tallied rupees 10 only. So these are the four possibilities. The above values of amounts, that is rupees 10 and 100, are only mentioned as examples, and you should take them in a relative sense and not in the absolute sense. This means that you shall not stick to just rupees 10 and rupees 100 even today. You should not say that since Swami, that is myself, Swami is telling this, advised like this, Swami advised like this, so you will only give those amounts since you are good followers of Swamiji, following him word by word. These figures are 5,000-year-old figures since the beginning of the Kali age, since all prices are soaring high due to inflation. At times, Swami hears some devotees commenting that the priests are demanding money in thousands. Swami likes to ask such devotees whether their pay scales were revised from time to time or not. So, excellent point here. You should also realize that the value of the rupee has fallen down terribly. Even after confining to basic necessities, the cost of living has become very high. This does not mean that I am supporting the priests just because I belong to their caste by birth. I always support the caste system based on qualities and deeds only, and not by birth. I am recommending rich people in society to support the poor priests by giving them at least enough to secure their livelihood by treating them to be the poorest. It is a basic emergency justice to not allow anybody to die of hunger. Even though the ignorant poor priest was reciting the Vedic hymns without knowing and explaining their meanings, that poor fellow recited the Vedic hymns for hours together, and hence you can pay him for that physical labor at least. Oh, excellent points here. You may argue that the physical labor is a waste for you, since the priest did not explain the meanings. In that case, why did you invite him to do such wasteful physical labor? Very important question here for introspection. I just repeat, in that case, why did you invite him to do such wasteful physical labor? Once you have invited, you must pay for the physical labor at least. In fact, I am very angry with the priests for following the dirty old tradition of the blind recitation of the Veda without explaining the meaning in the mother tongue of the public while conducting rituals. In fact, these priests also need not be blamed because they are not the initiators of this bad tradition of the blind recitation of the Veda. Their fault is that they are following the old blind traditions which are to be discarded by analysis. Jnatva kurvita karmani from Gita. There, there are plenty of the best old traditions practiced by our ancient sages to be followed by every day. So at this point, we will stop this. This ends the answer here. So we will read some question answers. So we were going through the set of question answers on May 1st. So first of 6 we have covered. These are all asked by Miss Railokia. So for first 6 we have covered, and so we will start from the continue from the 7th question. Her question is it not a blindness to see everything as good or bad, since both exist in reality? The detailed question is, Swami, it is said that for a good person, everything appears good, And for a bad person, everything appears bad. But isn't it blindness to see everything as either good or bad, since both good and bad exist in factual reality? Swami replied, yes, you are correct in saying that both good and bad exist in the world. One must see good as good and bad as bad without any partiality based on family, caste, gender, etc. A good person, seeing everybody as good, will be harmed by a bad person. A bad person, seeing everybody as bad, will lose the help of a good person. Equality of good shall be in the case of all good people. Excellent. Excellent point here. And equality of bad shall be in the case of all bad people. Equality is seen in all the living beings, whether good or bad, means that spiritual scholars see the soul, it is awareness that is present in every living being, and it does not mean that the qualities of all living beings are one and the same. Pandita Samadarshinaha from Gita. Even God protects good people and punishes bad people. Paritranaya. Gita. Next question is also from her. There cannot be bad in the creation since it is created by God. Then how can there be so much of sin in this world? So the detailed question is, Swami, you told that there cannot be bad, that is amangalam, asubham, in this creation, since it is created by the auspicious God, who is mangalam, subham. In that case, how can so much of sin, suffering, and violence exist in the world, which is absolutely bad? Swami replied, when God created this creation, He created all the good qualities only. The human beings diverted a good quality towards a bad direction, and that quality became bad, which is also stamped by human beings as a permanent bad quality. Anger is necessary for the parents and teachers to develop discipline in children. But when the same anger is diverted to a good person to harm him, such anger becomes a bad quality. The direction towards which a quality is diverted makes the quality good or bad. And her next question, does the word Bhagavan mean God Datta or Parabrahman? And the detailed question is, does the word Bhagavan mean God Datta, that is first first energetic form of God, or Parabrahman, unmediated, unimaginable God? So who is Bhagavan? Either God, whether God Datta or Parabrahman. So Swami replied, Bhagavan means the person possessing 6 auspicious qualities, and the word indicates that the person is of male gender. Hence, Bhagavan means God Datta, the mediated God. But all these auspicious qualities are also present in the unmediated, unimaginable God. And such God can be called as Bhagavat of neutral gender. Bhagavat of neutral gender. The power of God Datta is Anagha of female gender and is called as Bhagavati. Oh, excellent. Bhagavat, Bhagavati, and Bhagavan. Next question is also by her. Rama was straightforward and Krishna was not. How to correlate? The detailed question is, Swami, you told that Krishna is as pure as Rama, since both are the incarnations of the same God Vishnu. But Rama was straightforward and Krishna did a lot of drama. How to correlate? Swami replied, God Rama stands for, sorry, I'll just repeat. God Rama stands for means justify ends. God Krishna stands for ends justify means. Rama incarnated in the beginning of Treta Yuga and Krishna incarnated at the end of Dwapara Yuga. Therefore, 2 yugas of time gap is there between both the incarnations. People were ethical and straightforward in Treta Yuga, and as time advanced, people became unethical by the time Krishna came. Hence, drama was necessary in the time of hence drama was unnecessary and not required in the time of Rama, and drama was very much needed in the time of Krishna. Finally, justice must be protected, whether the means are just or unjust. As per the context required, the path shall be modified, but the end must be only protection of justice and destruction of injustice. So it's already 8 o'clock. I will stop here for Bhakti Ganga. Namaskaram, Swami.
Namaste.
స్వామి మీ పాదపద్మాలకు నమస్కారం స్వామి.
Namaste.
సృజంతం సాసంతం సంహరంతం జగంతి సంతతం చింతయే శ్రీదత్తంతం యోగ విద్యా సత్యసారం బోధయంతం सत्यदर्शनलालसानाकर्षयन्तं योगविद्या सत्यसारं बोधयन्तं सत्यदर्शनलालसानाकर्षयन्तं मानवेभ्यो मानवाकृतिरवतरन्तम् अष्टसिद्धिभिरास्तिकत्वं प्रतिष्ठापयन्तं मानवेभ्यो मानवाकृतिरवतरन्तम् अष्टसिद्धिभिरास्तिकत्वं प्रतिष्ठापयन्तं सृजन्तं सासन्तं संहरन्तं जगन्ति सन्ततं चिन्तये श्रीदत्तं सृजन्तं सासन्तं संहरन्तं जगन्ति सन्ततं चिन्तये श्रीदत्तं ధన్యవాదాలు స్వామి.
तत्सवितुस्ता देवतायाः वरेण्यभर्गो धीमहि प्रचोदयेद्वै धियो यो नः तं ब्रह्माणं ज्ञानसूर्यम् भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं प्राणे प्रसवात् यः प्रसिद्धः सवितेत्यस्य ब्रह्मतेजः शिष्यधियश्च प्रेरयेन्नः तं गायत्री मंत्रसारं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं गायत्रीयं छन्द एव सविता देवः स्मर्यते च शिष्यान्धकार मुकुलिताब्जा धीविका सदं गुरुवरेण्यं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं कर्ता भर्ता ह्येषहर्ता सर्वस्यास्य श्रूयते हि त्रिमूर्तिरूपं ब्रह्मचैकं ब्रह्माकारं ब्रह्मवाचं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं त्रिपदं छन्दः त्रिस्वरोक्तं त्रिकालवन्द्यं त्रिगुणसूत्रं त्रिवाहिनीनां संगमं वा त्रिमूर्तितत्त्वं यं यनक्ति भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं ओंकारश्च त्रिविधवर्णः त्रिस्रो व्याहृत योऽपि यं हि सम्बोधयन्ति सर्वमन्त्रो यमेव वक्ति त्रिगुणमेकं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं चत्वारोऽयं वेदशुनकाः गौरनुसरति च वेदधर्मः वीणाश्रवणं वाणीपतिं षोडशवर्षं ब्रह्मदेवं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं जगदारम्भं हंसवाहं तेजोवदनं मन्त्रमूलं गायत्रीशं सामगानं विद्यानिलयं वेदपाठं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं यज्ञाचरणं होमनिष्ठं कमण्डलुधरं दर्भपाणिम् अग्निज्वाला भासमानं प्रातः सन्ध्या बालभानुं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं चन्दनतिलके कुङ्कुमाङ्कं ब्रह्मतेजसा दीप्यमानं जगन्मोहन सुन्दराङ्गं आशायधरं पंडितेशं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तम् अत्रेः पुत्रं ब्रह्मदत्तम् अनसूयाम्बा प्रेमराशिम् अजनमेखलं ब्रह्मदण्डम् यज्ञोपवीता मक्षमालं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं स्वतनोरुद्यत् कमलगन्धैः त्रिभुवनानि ह्लादयन्तं ब्रह्ममुहूर्ते साधकानां प्रचोदयेत्ता धियो यो नः भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं सृष्टिक्रमवद पुरुषसूक्तं त्रिस्वरबद्धं पावनार्थं ऋषिभिः पठितं ब्रह्मकाले श्रुत्वा श्रुत्वा प्रीयमाणं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं त्रिमताचार्यै पठ्यमानान् तत्तन्मतमय भाष्यवादान् श्रुत्वा सिद्धान्तार्थमन्त्यं समन्वयमतं वाचयन्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं वेदान्तानामन्तिमार्थं वेदान्तार्थं बोधयन्तं ऋषिभिः परितो भाषमाणं शास्त्रार्थेषु व्यञ्जितेषु भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं आयुधवर्जित पाणिपद्मं वाचैवारिं मारयन्तं कर्मफलानि ललाटपत्रे लिखन्तमायो दायदानं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तम् आचार्येन्द्रं वाक्प्रचारं भुवि सञ्चारं निर्विचारं खलाभिचारं सदाचारं सुरपरिचारं चित्तचोरं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं पद्मसंभवं पद्मपीठं पद्मसुगन्धं पद्मवर्णं पद्मापुत्रं पद्मनेत्रं पद्मसुपाणिं पद्मपादं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं वीणापाणिः यस्य शिष्या वाणी गायति ज्ञानदेवी तं वागीशं सामवाचा चरशोणाधर मन्त्रपाठं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं यत्सङ्कल्पः केवलं हि सर्वं विश्वं रचितमेवम् आद्यं देवं प्रथममूर्तिम् आराधनीया मजमनादिं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं ललाटरेखां कर्मबद्धां परिमार्ष्टुं यः केवलो हि सर्वसमर्थो लेखकोऽयं धातारं तं मूलमूलं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं चतुराम्नायां चतुरवाचा चतुरास्याब्जै रुद्गिरन्तं कविं कवीनाम् आदिकाव्यं सर्वजगदिदं विरचयन्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं परमब्रह्म ब्रह्मशब्दो यस्मिन्नेव प्रकृतिहेतौ पूजातीतं परमपूज्यं दिवसारम्भे पूजनीयं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं गायत्री आद्या यस्य भार्याः त्रिशक्तयस्ताः त्रिमुखपद्मं देवपितॄणां पितरमेव पितामहाख्यं ब्रह्मरूपं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं श्रीदत्त ब्रह्म गायत्रीं योगायेत् ब्रह्मकालिकीं सब्रह्म तेजसा दीप्तो ज्ञानी ब्रह्मत्वमश्नुते शतायुर्दायमाप्नोति सर्वविद्याः प्रपद्यते सत्पुत्रं लभते होमात् ऐश्वर्यं ब्रह्मवीक्षितः भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं भज भज दत्तं
वेंकटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेंकटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् ऊर्ध्वपुण्ड्रविलक्षणाङ्कित फालदेशसमुज्ज्वलं सप्तशैलविभूषणं नव नीलमेघसमप्रभं वामपार्श्वविलम्बिमौक्तिक दामचारुकिरीटिनं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् हंसयोरुपरिस्फुरद्युति शङ्खचक्रसुलक्षितं चक्रवाकसमाकृतिस्फुट कर्णभूषणशोभितं स्वर्णवर्णधगद्धगद्युति नूतनाम्बरविभ्रमं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् चित्रपुष्पसरोल्लसत्तुलसीदळात्मकमालिकं वज्रमौक्तिकधामसंभृत चित्रचित्रविभूषणं शोणपद्मविशेषहार परिष्कृतामलकन्धरं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् शूतपल्लवकोमलाधर नर्तितस्मितसुन्दरं चन्दनाङ्कसमुल्लसच्युबुकान्तकान्तिविलक्षणम् उल्लसत्तिलपुष्पसंमित चरुनासमनोहरं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् धौतदीधितिमीनयुग्म कलालसत्तललोचनं कामचापयुगभ्रुवोरति सुन्दराकृतिभासुरं वामपाणिविलोलसौरभ वर्षिकोमलवारिजं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् दक्षिणादिगुणालयं शुभ सर्वसद्गुणसागरं पापकूपनिमग्नजीव समुद्धरं धरणीधवम् अङ्गुलीयकवज्रदीधिति पाणिनाभयदायकं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम् उज्ज्वलाङ्गसुदर्शनाभिध चक्रखण्डितराक्षसं सर्वमङ्गलदेवता रमयालसद्गुरुवक्षसं शङ्खचक्रगदाशिशार्ङ्ग समाख्यपञ्चसमायुधं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः। वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां। वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम्। यः पठेदिदमद्भुतं स्तव मुत्तमोत्तममागमं सर्वकष्टविमुक्तिमेति सकृत्सुखं लभते नरः। क्षीरसागरशायिनं परमाप्नुयात् परपूरुषं वेङ्कटेश्वरमाश्रये मम किं करिष्यति वै कलिः। वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 पाहि मां। वेङ्कटेश्वर 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 रक्ष माम्।
शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। फाललोचनं तव हि मे सुदर्शनं शूलमेव ते तिलकमोत्फपुण्ड्रकम् नीलकण्ठते भाति कण्ठनीलिम विस्तरान्महो मम हि देहनीलिम। शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। फालचक्षुषा दग्धपद्मसायकं सादराक्षिणा दृष्टपद्मसम्भवं प्रेमवीक्षणा लोलपद्मलोचनं त्वां त्रिलोचनं देवसंस्मराम्यहं। शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। नटनपण्डिता स्फुरति रम्यताण्डवं चित्रमण्डलं भ्रमणलोलकुण्डलं पुरगमण्डन स्खलितधर्मदण्डनं धनुजखण्डनं विजितभारतीभण्डनं। शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। शङ्कराय ते लोकशङ्कराय ते वन्दनानि मे देववासुदेवस्य। अनसूयपुत्र गुरुदत्ता अभयम्बुनिम्मु प्रभुदत्ता कमलायताक्ष श्रीदत्ता करुणान्तरङ्ग हे दत्ता कमनीयरूप श्रीदत्ता कलिवादभङ्ग हे दत्ता। अनसूयपुत्र गुरु अभयम्बुनिम्मु प्रभुदत्ता अनसूयपुत्र गुरुदत्ता अभयम्बुनिम्मु प्रभुदत्ता। హృదయాంతరాన ధ్యానిస్తే వెనువెంట దత్త విభుడొస్తే నను బ్రోవ మంచు ఏడిస్తే గురుసేవ జయమంటాడు. అనసూయ పుత్ర గురుదత్త అభయంబు నిమ్ము ప్రభుదత్త.
నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో. శ్రీ దత్తస్వామి వారు రచించిన తెలుగు జానపద గీతం. నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక నాలుగు వేదాలే కుక్కలై మొరుగుచు నీ వెంటబడేనే ధర్మ దేవతయే ధేనువుగా మారి నీ వెంట నడిచేనులే నాలుగు వేదాలే కుక్కలై మొరుగుచు నీ వెంటబడేనే ధర్మ దేవతయే ధేనువుగా మారి నీ వెంట నడిచేనులే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక సృష్టికర్తవు సృష్టి భర్తవు సృష్టి హర్తవు నీవేలే నీ బ్రహ్మ విష్ణు శివముఖములు అదే తెలిపేనులే సృష్టికర్తవు సృష్టి భర్తవు సృష్టి హర్తవు నీవేలే నీ బ్రహ్మ విష్ణు శివముఖములు అదే తెలిపేనులే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక సృష్టి స్థితి లయములను చేయు పరబ్రహ్మమొక్కటే ఈ మూడు పనులు చేయుచున్న నీవును ఒక్కడివే సృష్టి స్థితి లయములను చేయు పరబ్రహ్మమొక్కటే ఈ మూడు పనులు చేయుచున్న నీవును ఒక్కడివే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక వేద నిర్వచనము సమన్వయమయ్యేను నీలోనే దత్తుడే పరబ్రహ్మమని ఋషులే నిశ్చయించిరే వేద నిర్వచనము సమన్వయమయ్యేను నీలోనే దత్తుడే పరబ్రహ్మమని ఋషులే నిశ్చయించిరే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక నిర్గుణ పరబ్రహ్మము సగుణమైనప్పుడు అది నీవే కదా అనూహ్యము త్రిగుణోపాధిని ధరింపనది నీవైతివే నిర్గుణ పరబ్రహ్మము సగుణమైనప్పుడు అది నీవే కదా అనూహ్యము త్రిగుణోపాధిని ధరింపనది నీవైతివే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక స్నానాల గదిలో వివస్త్రుని ఎవరూను చూడలేరుగా అతడే వస్త్రధారిగా బయటకు రాగా అందరూ చూతురుగా స్నానాల గదిలో వివస్త్రుని ఎవరూను చూడలేరుగా అతడే వస్త్రధారిగా బయటకు రాగా అందరూ చూతురుగా నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక అనూహ్య నిర్గుణము పూజింపగా అశక్యమే సగుణము ఉపాధిచే గోచరమైనప్పుడు అది నీవే అనూహ్య నిర్గుణము పూజింపగా అశక్యమే సగుణము ఉపాధిచే గోచరమైనప్పుడు అది నీవే నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక నీ వెంటే పడతం దత్తుడో వేద శాస్త్రాల అర్థాల నిర్ధారక
English translation follows. The following song is the English translation of the Telugu folk song Nee Vente Padatam Dattudo, composed by His Holiness Shri Datta Swami, and the English translation is also done by Swami himself.
We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. Four Vedas became the barking dogs running after you. The deity of justice follows you as a cow behind you. Four Vedas became the barking dogs running after you. The deity of justice follows you as a cow behind you. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. You are the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the world. Your three faces of the divine Trinity convey this. You are the creator, maintainer, and destroyer of the world. Your three faces of the divine Trinity convey this. We run after you only, decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. Parabrahman is only one doing these three works. You are also one only doing these three works. Parabrahman is only one doing these three works. You are also one only doing these three works. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. Vedic definition of God is correlated in you only. Sages decided that Datta is only the Parabrahman. Vedic definition of God is correlated in you only. Sages decided that Datta is only the Parabrahman. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. Unmediated, unimaginable, God mediated becomes you. Unimaginable, mediated by three qualities, results as you. Unmediated, unimaginable, God mediated becomes you. Unimaginable, mediated by three qualities, results as you. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. None can see the naked person bathing in the bathroom. Same person wearing clothes coming out can be seen by everyone. None can see the naked person bathing in the bathroom. Same person wearing clothes coming out can be seen by everyone. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. None can worship unimaginable, that is beyond imagination. You the same, mediated, visible, can be worshipped by all. None can worship unimaginable, that is beyond imagination. You the same, mediated, visible, can be worshipped by all. We run after you only, O Datta, the authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures. We run after you only, O Datta, authority to decide the essence of Vedic scriptures.
धरती पर भक्तों के तुम हो उद्धारक, भक्तों के कष्टों के तुम हो निवारक, जीवों के भरता तुम ही हो मेरे पालक, जगत गढ़ हूँ मैं और तुम जग संचालक।
गुरु दत्ता श्री दत्ता जय जय प्रभु दत्ता, त्रिमूर्ति अवतारी साक्षात परब्रह्म श्री दत्ता स्वामी।
सृष्टि स्थिति लयकारी तुम दत्तावतारी, तुम्हारी लीला स्वामी जग से है
उद्वेगरहिता संतोषरहिता शान्तिसमुद्रा श्रीदत्ता शान्तिसमुद्रा श्रीदत्ता शान्तिसमुद्रा श्रीदत्ता ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः।
पाद नमस्कारं स्वामीजी।
नमस्ते
नमस्कारं स्वामी।
नमस्ते
पाद
नमस्ते
नमस्कारं स्वामी।
नमस्कारं
नमस्ते
स्वामीजी।
नमस्ते नमस्ते
पाद
స్వామి మీ
నమస్కారం
పాదపద్మాలకు నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते
సాష్టాంగ నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते
నమస్కారం
नमस्ते 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 नमस्ते
నమస్కారం
नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామిజీ.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామీజీ.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామీజీ.
नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం
नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం
स्वामीजी
స్వామీజీ.
नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
నమస్తే స్వామీజీ.
नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామిజీ.
नमस्ते
నమస్కారం స్వామి.
नमस्ते नमस्ते नमस्ते
Is anyone left to offer pranams to Swamiji?
పాద నమస్కారం స్వామిజీ.
नमस्ते
Pada Namaskaram Swami.
नमस्ते